I'm not usually the type of person to believe in ghosts or anything supernatural. I work at McDonald's, for crying out loud, is not exactly where you'd expect to hear spooky stories, but I swear to you what I experienced in that play place will never leave me. It all started a few weeks after I got promoted to shift supervisor at our McDonald's in Oregon. I was mostly in charge of the evening shift, so I got to know all the closing routines pretty well. The play place was a huge part of our location, attracting tons of families with kids. But that night I wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. It was just a normal Friday night. The dinner rush had slowed down and we were starting to clean up before closing. I sent most of the crew to the back to finish up the kitchen, leaving just me and Maddie, one of our newer employees, to handle the front. The play place was empty by this point. Most parents don't let their kids stay too late, especially since we close at 10 p.m. At around 9:45 we had one family left. A woman and her 2 kids were hanging out near the play place, but they were getting ready to leave. I didn't think much of it as I went to wipe down the tables, but then I heard Maddie call my name. "Hey, do you hear that?" she asked, looking toward the play place. I listened for a second but didn't hear anything. "What?" "I thought I heard a kid laughing," she said, "but I swear the play place is empty." I shrugged. "Might be one of the kids still inside. You know they like to hide in the tunnels." We waited for the last family to leave before I went to check the play place, just to make sure no one was still in there. As I walked toward the entrance, I felt a weird pressure in the air. It wasn't cold or anything, but something felt off. I brushed it aside and poked my head into the tunnel leading up to the slides. "Hey, anyone in here?" I called out. No answer, no noise, just silence. I figured it was just Maddie being jumpy, so I locked the gate and went back to finish cleaning. Maddie was still uneasy though. "Are you sure no one's in there?" she asked again. "I swear I heard something." I tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Maddie, you're probably just hearing things. It's late, we're tired." She didn't seem convinced but went back to wiping down the counter anyway. I checked my watch. 10 p.m. It was finally time to close. The lights were already dimmed in the play place, and everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. Just as I was about to flip the switch to turn off the play place lights completely, I heard it. Clear as day, the sound of a kid laughing. Not a creepy horror movie kind of laugh, just a regular playful giggle. But there was no one in the play place. I froze for a second, my hand on the light switch. "Maddie, did you hear that?" I asked, my voice a little shaky now. She nodded, wide-eyed. "I told you I wasn't making it up." I took a deep breath and tried to rationalize it. Maybe one of the kids had snuck back in without us noticing. "I'll check again," I muttered. Grabbing a flashlight, I unlocked the gate and stepped inside the play place. I didn't want to admit it, but I was a little spooked. The tunnels and slides were eerily quiet now, and my footsteps seemed to echo louder than usual. I crawled up the tube that led to the top slide, my heart pounding faster with each step. When I reached the top, I shined the flashlight around. Empty. No kids, no one hiding. I moved through the other sections of the structure, checking the corners and slides, still nothing. That's when I saw it. At the very top, inside one of the little crawl spaces, there was a small stuffed bear. It looked old, like something out of a thrift store, and I definitely hadn't seen it before. "Maddie," I called down. "Did anyone leave a toy behind earlier?" She shook her head from below. "No, nothing like that." I stared at the bear for a moment, confused. We hadn't had any little kids come through in the past few hours, and this thing looked way older than any of the toys kids usually brought in. I picked it up, feeling its worn fabric. That's when the laughter started again. Louder this time, like it was right behind me. I whipped around, but no one was there. My heart raced. I scrambled down the slide as fast as I could, clutching the bear in one hand. When I hit the ground, I locked the gate behind me, breathing heavily. "What the hell was that?" Maddie asked, her face pale. I didn't have an answer. I just held up the bear. "This was up there." Maddie frowned. "That wasn't there earlier?" I nodded. "I know. Something's not right." We finished cleaning in silence, both of us glancing toward the play place every few minutes like we expected something to jump out. By the time we locked up and left for the night, I was starting to feel like I was losing it. The next day I asked my manager if he knew anything about the play place. He laughed and said, "Oh yeah, some of the older staff used to talk about weird stuff happening there. Kids getting scratched, toys moving around. I thought it was just stories. I didn't think it was just stories anymore. Over the next few weeks, the weirdness got worse. Parents started complaining that their kids came out of the play place with bruises or small cuts. One mum swore she saw a shadow dart across the top of the structure while her son was playing inside, but when she looked, no one was there. Maddie and I kept hearing the laughter late at night, always after the play place was empty. The bear? I threw it out, but a few days later I found it sitting on one of the tables in the play place like it had never left. Then one night something happened that I'll never forget. We were closing up like usual, but this time Maddie wasn't with me. She had swapped shifts with someone else, so it was just me and one other employee. It was about 10:15, and I was locking up the play place when I heard the laughter again. But this time, it wasn't just laughing. It was a voice. Faint but clear. "Come play with me." I froze. My entire body went cold. Slowly I turned around, shining my flashlight into the play place. And there, at the very top of the slide, I saw it. A figure. Small, like a child. But its face wasn't right. It was blurry, like I couldn't focus on it, but I could feel its eyes on me. I didn't stick around to find out more. I ran out of there as fast as I could, locking the door behind me. I didn't care if I was imagining things. I was done. I told my manager the next day that I wasn't closing alone anymore. He agreed, but the strange things never stopped. Kids still complained about getting hurt in the play place, and employees kept hearing voices at night. I ended up quitting a few months later. I couldn't handle it anymore. To this day, I don't know what was haunting that play place, but I know one thing for sure. I'm never stepping foot inside a McDonald's play place again. It started with a smile. I didn't think much of it at the time. You get all sorts of people when you work at McDonald's. Some are friendly, some are rude, some don't even make eye contact. But this guy, he was different. Polite, quiet, and always with that same soft smile when he ordered his food. His name was Mark. At least that's what the receipt said whenever I printed it. He always ordered the same thing, a double cheeseburger, no pickles, large fries, and a Coke. I remember the first day he came in. It was late afternoon, a few hours before my shift ended, and he walked in like any other customer. He smiled, I took his order, and that was it. Just another face in the sea of people I served every day. But then, he started coming back, every day, at the same time. After a few days, I realised I had started to recognise him. At first, I didn't mind. People have their routines, and McDonald's isn't exactly a rare addiction. I figured he liked the food or maybe the atmosphere. He never caused any trouble, and he was always polite. So when he walked up to the counter with that same smile, I smiled back, asked how his day was and handed him his food. But then, he started lingering. It was subtle at first. After he got his food, he'd sit at a table that was a little too close to the register. Most people like a bit of distance, but Mark liked to sit where he could see me. I'd be ringing up other customers, and when I glanced over, there he was, staring. Still smiling, but staring. I tried not to let it bother me. Maybe he was just socially awkward, I told myself. But after a week of this, it started feeling off. One night I had a late shift. It was almost closing time, and the place was dead. Just me and my co-worker Liz cleaning up. I thought I was in the clear when, just as I was about to clock out, Mark walked in. That same smile, that same order. "Late night, huh?" I said, trying to be casual as I rang him up. "Yeah," he said, his voice quiet. "Just wanted to grab something before heading home." I gave him his food, but he didn't leave. He sat at the same table, still watching me, even as we were cleaning up and putting chairs on tables. I felt his eyes follow me around the restaurant. I tried to act like it was no big deal, but I caught Liz giving me a look, like she noticed too. "Creepy," she muttered under her breath, when she passed me with a tray of trash. "That guy's always here." I nodded but didn't say anything. Maybe he was just lonely. I've seen plenty of lonely people come in and sit for hours just to have a little human interaction. I tried to brush it off, but that night when I walked out to my car, I saw him in the parking lot. He wasn't near his car. He was standing, just standing, a few rows over, watching me. I froze for a second, wondering what he was doing. Why wasn't he getting into his car? But then I told myself I was overreacting. He was probably waiting for someone. So I hurried to my car, got in and drove home without looking back. The next day he came in again, and the next, and the next. Each time he stayed longer. Each time he watched me more closely. I started getting paranoid. Was he really coming in just for the food, or was he coming in to see me? I didn't know what to think. I didn't want to be rude or accuse him of anything, but it was getting harder to ignore. One night after another long shift, I walked out to my car. I was exhausted and just wanted to go home, but there he was again. This time he was closer, standing right by the entrance to the parking lot, just standing there staring. No smile this time, just watching. My heart pounded in my chest. I tried to walk quickly to my car without making it obvious that I was freaked out. I kept my keys in my hand, ready to get in and lock the door the second I reached it. When I finally made it to my car, I threw open the door, jumped in and slammed the lock shut. My hands were shaking as I started the engine. I looked up and Mark was still standing there watching. I drove home faster than usual that night. The next day I told Liz what had been happening. I thought maybe I was just being paranoid, but she agreed that Mark's behaviour was weird. "You should tell the manager," she said. "That guy's not right." So I did. I told our manager Steve what had been going on. He frowned and told me not to worry. He said he'd keep an eye on things. But the next night Mark came in again, and this time Steve wasn't there. Mark sat at his usual table watching me. I tried to avoid looking at him, but every time I glanced over, there he was, his eyes following my every move. When I went to take the trash out later that night, I saw him again, this time standing outside the back door. I froze. He wasn't supposed to be there. I could see the faint outline of his face in the dim light from the street lamp, just standing there, waiting. My heart raced. I hurried back inside and told Liz, and she looked out the window. "He's still there," she whispered. "We should call the police." But when we did, Mark was gone by the time they arrived. The officer took a report but didn't seem too concerned. He said it was probably nothing and that we should just be cautious. But I knew it wasn't nothing. A week passed. Mark didn't show up, and I thought maybe it was over. Maybe he'd found somewhere else to hang out. Or maybe he realised he was creeping me out. But just when I started to relax, he came back. This time, he didn't order anything. He just walked up to the counter and stood there, staring at me. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice shaky. He didn't answer. He just smiled, that same eerie smile, and said, "I like watching you." I froze. I didn't know what to say. Liz was in the back and I was alone at the counter. My stomach dropped. I felt like I was trapped. I have to go," I stammered, trying to sound casual. I ducked into the back, my hands shaking as I grabbed my phone. I texted Steve and Liz, telling them what happened, but by the time Liz came out, Mark was gone again. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. That smile. Those eyes watching me. I didn't know what to do. The police hadn't taken me seriously, and now I felt like I was being hunted. The next day I called in sick. I couldn't face him again, but even though I wasn't at work, I still felt like he was watching me. Every time I looked out my window, I half expected to see him standing there waiting. I'd just started working at a McDonald's in a small town, and the manager Dave was known for being a bit secretive. At first, I thought it was just his way of keeping control, but I soon realised there was something more unsettling about him. One night, while the restaurant was starting to wind down, Dave called me over to his office. "Yara," he said, "I need your help with something." I'd heard some whispers among the staff about a locked room in the back of the office, but I never thought much of it. "Sure, what do you need?" He glanced around as if to make sure no one else was nearby, then unlocked a door behind a large filing cabinet. "This room's for special supplies," he said, giving me a strange smile. "I don't want anyone else to see it." Curiosity got the better of me. I peeked inside and saw a dimly lit room filled with old files, dusty furniture, and a big safe in the corner. The walls were lined with old maps and charts. It seemed like a normal storage area, but there was something off about it. "Why is it locked?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "It's just for security," Dave said quickly. "I need to keep some things private." He asked me to grab a few files from the room and leave them on his desk. As I walked in, I noticed a drawer in the safe was slightly ajar. I saw a glimpse of something inside, old photos and what looked like a stack of surveillance tapes. The next day I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen. I asked a few co-workers about it, but they only shrugged and said it was probably nothing. That weekend I decided to check the room out for myself. I waited until the restaurant was empty. I let myself into the office with my key and went straight to the room. It was just as I remembered, dusty and cluttered with a faint smell of old paper. I approached the safe and took a closer look. It had a combination lock, and I had no idea how to open it, but I felt a strong urge to find out what was inside. On a shelf I found a small old notebook with some scribbles in it. Flipping through I saw a series of numbers and names. My heart raced as I tried different combinations on the lock. After a few attempts the safe clicked open. Inside I found a pile of old photographs and several surveillance tapes. I was horrified to see footage of the restaurant from years ago showing the kitchen and dining areas. There were cameras hidden in places where they shouldn't be, including restrooms. It was clear Dave had been recording people without their consent. As I was about to leave, I heard the door to the office creak open. Panic set in, and I quickly turned off the TV and shoved the tapes back into the safe. The safe was hard to close, and just as I managed to lock it, Dave walked in. His eyes widened in shock. "What are you doing in here, Yara?" he demanded, his voice low and angry. I tried to stay calm. "Just checking some old files." Dave's expression turned dangerous. "You shouldn't be in here," he said, stepping closer. "Get out now!" I backed away, but Dave blocked the door. "I'm going to make sure you don't interfere with my work," he said ominously. I felt a surge of fear. I needed to get out, but he was standing between me and the door. With my heart pounding, I acted quickly. I darted past him, elbowing him out of the way, and ran out of the office. Dave didn't follow me immediately, so I rushed to the back door of the restaurant, which I'd propped open earlier. I slipped outside, my hands shaking as I fumbled with my phone. I dialed 911 and explained everything to the operator. The police arrived within minutes, and I led them back to the restaurant. Dave was gone by then, but they searched the office and found the room. They seized the evidence and started an investigation. In the days that followed, I learned that Dave had been using the hidden cameras for years. The police took him into custody and the restaurant was temporarily closed for a thorough investigation. The whole ordeal left me feeling shaken. The thought that Dave had been secretly recording people was horrifying. I decided to leave McDonald's after that, unable to shake the feeling of violation. The experience was a stark reminder that sometimes the most unsettling things happen in places you least expect them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel.